very good evening to all the lovely kids. It's time for Children's Bedtime Treasury with Let Emotions Speak. Today's story is about Mrs. Mouse's holiday. Mrs. Mouse was very excited. All year she had been so busy. First, there had been nuts and berries to gather in readiness for winter. Then she had needed to give her little house a big spring clean to make it nice and fresh. Now, as the warm sun shone down on the trees and flowers of her woodland home, she had promised herself a well-deserved holiday. But getting ready for holidays seemed to make one busier than ever. There was so much to do. First, she took out her little case, opened it and placed it carefully on her neatly made bed. Then she rushed to her cupboard and selected some fine holiday dresses. Back to her case, she scuttled and placed them in. Now she chose several pairs of shoes, a nice pair of sandals for walking along the front in, a pair of smart shoes for shopping in, an even smarter pair for going to dinner in, and another pair just in case. "I'll need a couple of sun hats," she thought to herself. And so into the case they went as well. These were followed by a coat, some gloves and a scarf, just in case the breeze got up and it became cold. Then, in case it became very sunny, in went some sunglasses, some sunscreen and a sunshade. But oh dear, there were so many things in the case that it refused to shut. She tried sitting on it and bouncing on it, but still it stubbornly would not close. So, out from the case came all the things that she had just put in, and Mrs. Mouse scurried to the cupboard again and chose an even bigger case. This time they all fitted perfectly, and she shut the case with a big sigh of relief. Now she was ready to go to the seaside for a holiday. She sat on the train with the case on the rack above her head, munching her hazelnut sandwiches and looking eagerly out of the window, hoping to see the sea. Finally, as the train shoved around a bend, there it was, a great deep blue sea shimmering in the sun, with white gulls soaring over the cliffs and headlands. "I'm really looking forward to be a nice quiet rest," she said to herself. Her guest house was very comfortable and so close to the sea that she could smell the clean salty air whenever she opened her window. "This is the life," she thought, "nice and peaceful." After she had put her clothes away, she put on her little swimming costume and a sun hat and packed her beach bag. Now she was ready for some peaceful sunbathing. At the beach, she found herself a quiet spot, closed her eyes and soon fast asleep. But not for long. A family of voles had arrived on the beach and they weren't trying to have a quiet time at all. The youngsters in the family yelled at the top of their voices, splashed water everywhere, and sent their beach ball tumbling all over Mrs. Mouse's neatly laid out beach towel. Just as Mrs. Mouse thought that it couldn't get noisier, along came a crowd of ferrets. Now, if you've ever sat on a beach next to a crowd of ferrets, you'll know what it's like. Their noisy shouting and singing made Mrs. Mouse's head buzz. Mrs. Mouse couldn't stand it a moment longer. She was just wondering where she might find some peace and quiet when she spotted a rock just a little way out of the sea. "If I swim out to that rock," she thought, "I will surely have some peace and quiet there." So she gathered up her belongings and swam over to the rock. It was a bit lumpy, but at least it was quiet. Soon she was fast asleep again. Just then, the rock started to move slowly out to sea. It wasn't really a rock at all, you see, but a turtle which had been dozing near the surface. Off into the sunset it went, with Mrs. Mouse dozing on its back, quite unaware of what was happening. Eventually, the turtle came to a deserted island. At that moment, Mrs. Mouse woke up. She looked at the empty beach, and without even knowing she had been sleeping on a turtle, She jumped off and swam to the shore, thinking it was the beach that she had just left. Just then, the turtle swam off, and Mrs. Mouse suddenly realized what had happened. For a moment, she was horrified, but then she looked at the quiet, palm fringed beach with no one about but herself and thought of the noisy beach she had just left. Well, perhaps this isn't such a bad place to spend a quiet holiday after all, she thought. And that's just what she did. Day after day, she lazed on her own private beach with no one to disturb her. There were plenty of coconuts and fruits to eat, and she wanted for nothing. She even made herself a cozy bed from palm leaves. Eventually, though, she started to miss her own little house in the woods and decided it was time to get back home. First, she took half a coconut and nibbled out the tasty inside. "That will make a fine boat to sit in," she said. Next, she found a palm leaf and stuck it in the bottom of the shell. She took her little boat to the water's edge, and as the wind caught her palm leaf sail, off she floated back to the boarding house to get her belongings. As she sailed back, she thought, "This is the quietest holiday I've ever had. I may come back here next year."